Hi, I'm Scott Patel with the Home and Key Group at LPT Realty. And today, I'm going to cover the third step of how to write winning offers. The third step is actually how to write the offer line by line to make your offer more appealing. Really, what this is all about, guys, this is a practice of treating every single section of the offer as a strategic tool, not just a box or a place to fill in. Every line you write is a chance to either build confidence and trust or raise doubt and lose the deal. And you don't want to do that. So a strategic offer isn't about just throwing the highest number at the seller. It's about crafting terms that show your buyers committed, prepared, and really easy to work with. It's really, really important because, especially in a competitive market where there's multiple offers, this is going to come up. You don't want to have a sloppy or a generic offers because those end up getting put to the side, especially in a competitive market, even when those offers are competitive themselves, right? You don't want to be that sloppy agent and have it like everybody else's. So, listing agents are always looking at the risk. They're evaluating it. They're not looking just strictly at numbers when they go to present it to the seller. So a poorly written offer is going to signal future headaches, red flags we call it, right? You see the red flags flying. You look at the offer; it's all messed up. Things are misspelled. Dates are in the way in the future that don't make any sense, or way in the past you've already gone by it. So you got to get that stuff right. So, because a strong offer, a nice, clean, neat written offer is a seller's path to least resistance, right? It shows on paper that you and your buyer are the most likely to make it across the finish line and that you're going to be easy to work with. It's like, listen, as a listing agent, I know that's what I want. I know that's what my sellers want. They want a nice, clean, easy deal, right? So my experience is top agents are going to win offers, not because they overpay, right? Not because it's the highest offer sometimes, because they write smarter offers and they make the seller feel safe and comfortable with that offer. So, for example, right, a house, you could have an offer of $500,000 with a clean, well-written offer can beat a 505 offer that's a messy contract full of uncertainty. It gives the sellers nervousness, right? Anxiety. They don't want that. They'll take the $5,000 less to know they're going to be able to move this thing to the finish line without any headaches, right? So here's really the key areas. We'll go line by line. I'm going to really go through this a couple of times to make sure that you get it right. So price doesn't always have to be the highest, right? You want to use you want to be different, right? So smart and structured is going to help you. Like, house is 475. Your buyer wants to come in at 500,000. How about you come in at 501, 750? Something different. Nobody's doing that, right? Everybody's coming in at 500. So you want to be, that little thing that make you stand out, right? On the deposits, right? For a seller, the bigger those deposits, the more warm and fuzzy feeling that they have that this buyer is committed to buying the property, right? So you got to know that and you got to use that to your advantage. On the compensation, what you're going to get paid as a buyer's agent, make sure you put it in there clearly and professionally, right? Listing agents are going to remember how you handle this piece of the offer, right? On a duration on the offer, you can use it to go either way. Short deadlines are going to create urgency. Longer deadlines are going to give calmness. So it all depends on what you want to do. Because there's times where you want to turn up the heat and there's times where you want to back it off, right? So you have to make that choice, make it intentional as part of that offer package, right? On your purchase and sales agreement, listen, you want to keep the momentum running. Everybody wants to go into a PNS. Everybody wants to get the bigger deposit. Everybody wants to get to that. So to me, the longer sometimes that gets dragged out, the more often it is that the deal falls apart. So, try to get that done quickly. On the down payment and the financing, same thing here. Like the higher the down payment, the lower the perceived risk that this deal's going to fall apart. It looks like the buyer is stronger financially, right? And then a nice, strong local lender, their letter to boost the trust, their phone call means a lot. So on the closing date, you in a competitive market, even though you're representing the buyer, your job is to be able to get to buy that property, right? So sometimes you have to go with what the seller's looking for, right? Match the seller's timeline exactly, right? Because if you have flexibility on that, it's sometimes going to be worth more than a higher purchase price, right? Because the seller needs a little bit more time, or whatever the case may be. You got to put that in. You got to use that as part of the offer. On contingencies, you want to keep them short, clean, and really easy to understand. Put them in English, just so everybody knows what they mean. And then on the stuff that's going to stay and not stay, Be clear on this too, because I've seen more problems over the years over the stupid things like appliances or whatever, because it just wasn't in there clearly. So you want to be clear what the appliances are that are going to stay, and you really don't want to nitpick again. When the market shifts and it becomes a buyer's market, you can do a lot of those things. But the way it's been lately over the last several years, keep it clean, make it make sense to the seller. Stay away from those like nitpicky, petty demands, right? Understand that every single section of the offer is a lever. And if you pull the right ones, and your offer will rise above the competition, because it won't be just strictly about the money. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of information there that's going to help the seller make a decision. A lot of the times it is strictly about the money. I'm not going to say it's not, but a lot of times you can win with an offer that's less if you're strong in all the other areas of the offer. So, going back with the price, price with a purpose, use it as part of your strategy, right? Use an odd number, round it up slightly, right? That it makes it stand out, right? And if you have a lower purchase price, try to get stronger with the other terms of the offer, right? So it's not just about the purchase price. You can make the other parts of the offer much stronger and more appealing to the seller, right? On the EMD, the deposits, right? I mean, we try to go 2 to 5%, if possible, right? If you want to get really aggressive, you can make it non-refundable after the inspection, right? So that really shows that your buyer really has some serious skin in the game, as long as they're good with that. Again, being clear on your compensation. You need to write it in to make sure it protects you, but you also don't want to insult the seller. Keep it professional. And on the timing, control the timing, right? Again, if you want to create urgency, use shorter deadlines, right? That's creating pressure. If you want to create calmness, use a longer timeline, and that may make the seller feel a little bit more comfortable. So you have to judge what you're going to do with that offer, right? Again, going back to the purchase and sales, keep that momentum. Offer to get that signed as quick as possible, especially if an inspection's waived, right? We don't need 10, 12 days. If there's going to be no inspection, try to get that done as quickly as possible. The faster you get that done, the more likely it is it's not going to fall apart. So on the financing part, you got to frame it as a strength, right? If you got a good high down payment, you want to highlight that, right? Really, really important to make sure your offer comes with a really reputable lender's pre-approval, right? And again, I'm going to touch on that on a couple of videos from now, how you can use your lender to really help you get the offer accepted. So back to the closing, match the calendar for the seller. Don't assume any dates, right? Sometimes we feel like, oh, we got to get this thing closed really, really fast, and the seller doesn't want a fast closing. And we think that's going to help win the offer, and all it does is turn the seller off. So you got to ask the listing agent, what the seller's looking for in terms of a closing date, and then match that. Again, in this type of market, you just have to do that to win. So on your contingencies, try to trim the fat and keep it simple, keep it basic, right? Yeah, you want to have your inspection in there if the buyers are looking for that, right? But keep the timeline short. In fact, when you submit the offer, try to have the home inspection already lined up so you can tell the agent, hey, listen, we're going to do this in 3 days, right? Use appraisal gap language if needed, like a lot of times in today's market, right? We're going well over asking, and I know that strengthens the offer for the buyer. And just keep it simple, keep it crystal clear, so the seller's agent, the listing agent, can understand when they explain that to their seller of, hey, they're gone X amount over, and I know we're maybe afraid it's not going to appraise, but the buyers are willing to pay up to $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 out of their pocket to keep the transaction moving. So again, what's going to stay in the property, the inclusions, make sure you're clear about that. The last thing you want to run into, I see it mainly in multifamilies, where agents will put, all seller-owned appliances to remain. While that may be okay, I prefer to know, hey, there's going to be 3 fridges, 3 ranges, 2 sets of washers and dryers, so you know exactly what it is, and the deal doesn't blow up at the end because you found out that the second floor tenant owned the refrigerator, and we assumed that it was the seller's. And so if you get it down on paper, it makes it a lot easier, and for things to not go wrong. So, stick to the MLS items listed, right? So a lot of times the listing agent will put in there, this is going to stay. sometimes you don't want to lose a deal over the washer and dryer wasn't going to stay. So you got to kind of have that conversation. But, we're in the business of selling houses. So when we get the whole, hey, can the fire pit stay or the patio furniture stay? A lot of times that can make things go sideways. So again, in a competitive market where the sellers are receiving multiple offers, the less of that stuff you have in there, the better off you are, because that kind of stuff sometimes can kill a deal. So to recap the whole deal, your offer it's not just strictly numbers, right? It's a story that you're trying to tell, right? And the story that you're trying to tell, that you should be telling, is, hey, this deal is solid. My buyer is committed, and I'm the agent who's going to get this across the finish line with the least amount of problems. And if you can convey that, like I said, a lot of times you can win an offer that's less, because the agent and the seller feel really, really comfortable. You made them feel really, really comfortable. This is going to be a good, smooth transaction with no headache. So if you want to, I put in the chat, if you want to access, we have this whole process all down. You get a free download. It's going to include the 5 steps in writing winning offers. It's going to include samples of how we teach new agents to structure offers. You're going to get the whole deal, how we present the offer, the way we put the documents, how we deliver it, the whole process. If you want a copy of that, you can go to writingwinningoffers.com, click over in the chat. You can download it for free. And I'll be covering a couple more of these videos over the next couple of weeks. I hope you enjoyed it.